Okay, so now we're moving up to division, so dividing fractions. Now, what you may want to do is watch me do the first one here, and then pause the video, and then go ahead and try the following three here. Alright, so we'll get to it. You can see here on the right side, there's 4 simple steps in order to divide fractions. Okay, so the first question was 3 over 8 divided by 6 over 8. Now, step 1 is referring to removing it. Now, remove it is talking about the sign here. So we want to get rid of the division sign. The flip it, the second step, that's referring to the second fraction. So the second step is referring to the second fraction. And what it means by flipping is changing the 8 so that it's now on the top and the numerator is now on the bottom as the denominator. Simplify it means simplifying across, and multiplying means multiplying the numerators and the denominators. So let's try and do this step by step. Okay, so the first step is for us to remove the sign, so we don't want that anymore. The second step says flip it, so we want to change the denominator and put it on the top for the second fraction, and then the numerator will now be on the bottom. Okay, and now we need to simplify it, so we want to simplify going this way, diagonally. Okay, so we need to work out what's one number that goes into the number 3 and the number 6. Now we know that the number 3 and the number 6 is in the multiples of 3. The numerator and the denominator is in the same row. There it is there. So we know that 3 divided by 3 is 1. So we can go ahead and we can cross that one out and put a 1 there. And 6 divided by 3 is 2. So we can cross that out and put a 2 there. Now we need to simplify this way, diagonally. So this is pretty easy. We know there's one number that goes into both the numerator and the denominator, and that number is the number 8. So we don't even need to look at the times table. We know that 8 divided by 8 is 1, and 8 divided by 8 is 1. And the final step is for us to multiply it. So now we can go ahead and we can multiply. So we know that 1 times 1, and remember we're multiplying horizontally, so we're multiplying the numerators and the denominators. So 1 times 1 equals 1, and 1 times 2 equals 2. And our answer is 1/2. So we definitely cannot simplify that anymore, and that's the answer. Okay, so the next question is 14 over 20 divided by 6 over 20. So let's jump right into it. What you should have done was you should have wrote down the first fraction, then you should have not included the division sign there. Remember, remove it, we don't want it anymore. And then we should flip the second fraction. So the denominator now becomes the numerator, and the numerator now becomes the denominator. So again, we just swap them. So in this case, we'll have 20 on the top and 6 on the bottom. Okay, so next step is for us to simplify. So remember, we simplify diagonally. So we'll start with the number 14, the numerator, and the number 6, the denominator. So what's one number that goes into both numbers equally? Well, let's have a look at the times table. We need to find the numerator and the denominator in the same row or the same column. And if we have a look, we can see that there is a number 6 here and a number 14 there. So we've got the numerator, well, in this case the denominator and the numerator in the same row, which is the multiples of 2. And because both the numerator and the denominator are multiples of 2, we know that the number 2 will definitely go into both of these numbers. How? Well, let's have a look. 6 divided by 2 is 3, and 14 divided by 2 is 7. So as you can see, the number 2 goes into both numbers. So let's go ahead and simplify. So 14 divided by 2 is 7. So now we can cross that out and put a 7 there. And 6 divided by 2 is 3. So now we can cross that out and put a 3 there. Remember that for both these numbers here, we divided by 2. So 2 was the one number that went into both the denominator and the numerator equally. Okay, so we're getting there. So now we need to simplify diagonally the other way. And again, as the last question, this is pretty easy because we know there's one number that goes into both numbers equally, and that's the number 20. So 20 goes into 20 once, and 20 goes into 20 once. Okay, so now we've finished with simplifying. The next step is for us to multiply it. So now we can put the multiplication sign in. And remember, when we multiply horizontally, meaning we multiply the numerators together and the denominators together. So in this case, the answer will be okay, 7 times 1 equals 7, and 1 times 3 equals 3. Okay, but let's change this improper fraction to a mixed number. Okay, so now we need to ask the question, how many groups of 3 go into the number 7? Now we know if we look at the times tables that the multiples of 3, there is no number 7 in there, okay? But we want to find out still, what's the most groups of 3 that can go into the number 7? Now, if I just give you an example of what I mean. Okay, we have 7 lines here, and we want to find out what's the most groups of 3 that will go into 7. And what we'll do then is we'll circle one group of 3, and then we'll circle another group of 3. So the most groups of 3 that go into the number 7 is 2. And we don't need to actually do this. We can just look at the times table. So if you look at the multiples of 3, you'll see that there's a 6 here. Okay? So 6 divided by 3 is 2. Now, the numerator here is 7. So we've got 1 left over. So basically, what we're doing here is we're finding the multiple that's closest to the numerator. And then we find out what the difference is. So in this case, it'll be 7 minus 6 equals 1. So the remainder is 1. So that means that 3 goes into 7 as a group 2 times, so 2 will be the outside number, the whole number, and there is 1 remainder, and you know that the remainder goes as the numerator, and the final step is making sure that the denominator is the same. So we write down the number 3. Okay, so that's the answer there. So again, we want to find out how many groups of 3, what's the most groups of 3 that can go into the number 7. And as you can see in this example here, we've got 2 groups of 3. So the groups, if you can group them, that number will go on the outside as a whole number. And the remainder, that remainder will be the numerator, and the denominator will stay the same. So you should have 2 1/3 as your answer.